3 seconds. That is what you have between seeing that light and losing everything that runs on electricity. You are on 5th Avenue, morning rush. The usual compression of bodies, yellow cabs, bike messengers threading gaps. A normal Tuesday. Your coffee is still hot, then you look up. Something is wrong with the sky. A slow, luminous shimmer, aquamarine and violet, stretched across the upper atmosphere above the southern horizon. Not lightning, not a reflection, an aurora. You are in Manhattan. The aurora does not reach Manhattan. Your brain takes 1 second to register it as beautiful, 1 second to reject it. By the 3rd second, what was detonated at 400 kilometers above you has already arrived. At the speed of light, you did not hear it, you did not feel it, it doesn't care about either. 3 seconds, that was your window. This is the war game nobody at the Pentagon will run on a whiteboard, not because the math is wrong, because the math is correct. Pyongyang's engineers studied every Patriot battery deployment, every ground-based interceptor sitting in its silo at Fort Greely, Alaska, every northward-facing radar tower in the North Warning System, 15 ANFPS 117 long-range radars and 39 ANFPS 124 short-range stations, all of them staring north. Cold War geometry, built for the polar approach. The threat was always going to come over the pole. Every architect of American homeland defense agreed on that. Nobody built a radar facing south. The Hwasong-17 is the largest road-mobile liquid-fueled intercontinental ballistic missile in the world. 2-stage, liquid propellant, 15,000-kilometer operational range, payload capacity between 2,000 and 3,500 kilograms. In a FOBS configuration, fractional orbital bombardment system, it does not arc toward its target. It inserts a warhead into low polar orbit on a southward track over the Pacific, over Antarctica, up the Atlantic, less than 1 full revolution. The entire flight profile slides beneath every northward radar cone in the NORAD network without generating a single track. The 38 North analysts documented this exact scenario in April 2022. It was publicly accessible. Nobody who could act on it did. Detonation altitude, 400 kilometers. The United States established that number themselves. In July 1962, they detonated a 1.44 megaton warhead at precisely that altitude over the mid-Pacific. Operation Starfish Prime. It damaged electrical infrastructure in Hawaii, 1,445 kilometers away. The physics has been documented for 60 years. At 400 kilometers, there is no air to carry a blast wave, no shock wave, no mushroom cloud, no sound. 3 electromagnetic pulses, E1, E2, E3, radiating downward at the speed of light. E1 arrives first, nanoseconds, peak field intensity, 50 kilovolts per meter. Every unshielded conductor on the surface absorbs that energy in the same instant. Traffic lights, grid connected, fully exposed, die instantly across the entire metro area. Traffic management computers go black, tunnel signals, toll systems, every intersection controller on every road in greater New York City, gone simultaneously. The cars do not all stop. A vehicle's metal chassis provides partial shielding for some electronics. Many engines keep running. That is precisely the problem. 8 million people exist in a city with no traffic signals, no GPS, no radio, no coordination, and most of them are still moving. The drivers who survive E1 have no idea why every light just went dark. They assume a localized failure. They keep accelerating toward the intersections. That assumption kills people faster than any warhead would. E2 follows microseconds later. Lightning frequency. Every surge suppressor in the city is already saturated, nothing left. Then E3. The slow pulse, quasi-DC currents induced in every long-line conductor for up to 100 seconds. The extra high-voltage transformers at Con Edison's Manhattan substations, custom units with 18-month manufacturing lead times, not held in strategic reserve anywhere in the country, overheat. Insulation collapses. They do not restart, but none of that is the first thing you will see. The first thing you will see is the sky fall. At peak morning arrival traffic, 20 to 30 commercial airliners are sequenced in approach corridors over the New York metropolitan area. LaGuardia sits 8 miles from Midtown. Its approach paths run at low altitude directly over Queens and the East River. These aircraft, Boeing 787s, 737 MAXs, Airbus A320s, are fly-by-wire. There is no mechanical linkage between a pilot's hands and the control surfaces. The computers move the ailerons. Without those computers, a neutrally stable aircraft like the A320 cannot be flown. The pilot's input reaches nothing. When E1 arrives, every unshielded flight control computer on every commercial airliner in the approach corridors fails in the same nanosecond. I tracked Iranian ballistic salvos from a THAAD battery in the Negev during the June 2025 war. I know what kinetic impact at scale looks like on a thermal display. What I am about to tell you is physics, not exaggeration. A fully loaded Boeing 787 on approach weighs approximately 180,000 kilograms. At approach speed, roughly 250 kilometers per hour, its kinetic energy upon impact is equivalent to several hundred tons of TNT. It is also carrying 100,000 liters of jet fuel. There is no Sully on the Hudson. There is no controlled ditching. There is a massive aerodynamic structure with zero flight control authority, transitioning from approach path to ballistic trajectory directly over the densest concentration of glass curtain wall towers on Earth. The engineers who designed Midtown's glass facades calculated wind load and seismic load. They did not calculate for an uncontrolled wide-body aircraft impact followed by a jet fuel fire running down the building's structural core. The shrapnel radius of a glass tower under that loading is measured in city blocks. Burning jet fuel flows downhill. In Manhattan, downhill is a street canyon. The kinetic secondary environment, cascading glass, structural debris, fire, compounds with every additional impact. There are not one, there are 20 to 30. Now I am going to tell you how to survive what comes after. You see the aurora. You do not reason. You move. Get underground. But Manhattan's subway is not uniform cover. The IRT lines built cut and cover in Midtown, the 4, 5, 6 on Lexington, the 1, 2, 3 on Broadway, sit 5 to 6 meters below street level. Thin concrete between you and the event above. That is a ceiling over a kill zone, not a shelter. The deep board stations are different. The A and C lines at 168th Street, 181st Street, and 190th Street in Washington Heights are tunneled through Manhattan schist bedrock, 30 to 55 meters below street level. The one train at 191st Street sits 53 meters underground in solid granite. Between you and the surface, there is hard rock. That is where you want to be during the initial kinetic phase. The aircraft impacts, the cascading glass, the secondary fires rolling through the street canyons above. If you are in a shallow Midtown station, 42nd Street, Grand Central, Union Square, you are not meaningfully underground. Get out. Move to the interior of a concrete frame building structure, away from every glass face. If you are on a moving train when power dies, rear of the car. Brace low. Protect your skull. Phase 2. The 48-hour clock. The math nobody at FEMA will brief you on. Fill the bathtub immediately. Every container you have. The city's main water tunnels are gravity-fed from upstate reservoirs. Pressure holds on lower floors for some hours. But the 96 electrical wastewater pump stations across the 5 boroughs die with the grid. High-floor booster pumps die. Above the 6th floor, pipes go dry within hours. Use what you stored for drinking only, nothing else. Now understand what happens to this city at the 24-hour mark. In the Negev, I managed the air picture from a battery position while watching the ground feed from below. I have seen what a population does when infrastructure collapses and the belief that rescue is coming is destroyed. In the first 12 hours, people cooperate. They share information. They believe the outage is temporary. At the 24-hour mark, when the permanence becomes undeniable, that social contract begins to fracture along stress lines that are entirely predictable. By 48 hours, without grid, without resupply, without communications, you are no longer in a crisis. You are in a different country, one where the old rules have not yet been replaced by new ones. Your extraction is on foot, but understand the bottleneck math before you approach any bridge. The Brooklyn Bridge pedestrian walkway moves several thousand people per hour under normal conditions. When 8 million people simultaneously understand that this island has no viable near-term future, several hundred thousand will converge on 4 or 5 crossing points at the same time. The bridge does not expand. What develops is a compression event. People have died in crowd crushes at densities far below what Brooklyn Bridge will see at hour 36. Your edge is time. Move at hour 12, not hour 36, before the compression, before the understanding becomes universal. Brooklyn Bridge is your axis east out of Lower Manhattan. George Washington Bridge is your axis north. Do not take the tunnels. No ventilation without power. No light. No predictable crowd behavior in a confined corridor under pressure. Walk north, walk east, Distance from density, rural New Jersey, rural Connecticut, moving water that predates pump stations and power grids. There is no coordinated evacuation coming on a timeline that helps you. The agencies that plan for this scenario run on the same grid that just died. Their contingency plans exist on servers that are now cold metal in dark rooms. I spent 20 years inside that machine. I watched the defensive gaps widen faster than any political body was prepared to acknowledge. When I said what I saw out loud in the rooms where it mattered, the machine decided my conscience was a liability. That is why I am here. That is who is talking to you. The only sensor Pyongyang cannot reach from 400 kilometers up runs on no power at all. Your judgment, your legs, your clock, running from the moment that Aurora appeared in a sky where it had no business being. Use them before the lights finish going out.